So rubrics is the next thing I'll talk about. A lot of benefits to rubrics. So it takes time to create the rubrics, but in the end, you can make the rubrics very specific. Don't use the government wording where it's very vague. If you put things that are very detailed, very specific, then the students know exactly what it is that they didn't do right, and then they can actually go back and fix it. So again, growth mindset makes it easy for them to go in. I allow them to then simply go back in. Stuff that they struggled with, they can redo, make it a different color, right? So I'm not looking through trying to figure what they added. So it's very clear what they've added, and then I can go through and re-click and change the mark quite quickly, and then it ends up actually putting it into the grade book for me. So it's a very powerful tool to use. So again, feedback's quick at detail. You can attach them to assignments and discussions. So it isn't just assignments that they're good for discussions. Usually the discussions in most courses don't get done. I've had students, halfway through the course, like, oh, I didn't know how to do the discussions because no one's ever made me do them before. So what I do is I basically put a lot of assignments into the discussions and move them from Dropboxes to discussion items. And then, of course, you can attach rubrics, you can mark it. The advantages to this then is you actually have students sort of interacting with each other and actually seeing each other's work. So it's a chance for exemplars, it's a chance to see stuff. And then often they're supposed to provide feedback and a response to other students' work. And the discussions is the place to do that. So discussions is actually a very powerful location in terms of taking an online environment and creating some collaboration, or at least having the students sort of hear what each other might be thinking. In some cases, they can put videos in or they can do it in actual wording. Rubrics are great because once you have them, you can copy and revise. So if you have a standard rubric, let's say for paragraph writing, which I'll show you in a bit, you can just copy it and then you just rename it for the assignment that you've attached it to. And so that's quite simple and easy. And again, in terms of resubmitted work, they're just radio buttons. So you click on the radio buttons and it'll change the mark that you give for each level, and it's automatically adjusted and pushed into grades. These few slides just sort of show you about how to create it. There's a great Brightspace video on how to create rubrics, and so I'm not going to go there with that. But basically, you have a criteria for each expectation. There's levels to then assess. And it can be as simple as pass or fail. So it could be 2 columns, it could be 5 columns. I've seen teachers use up to 8 columns. It's up to you how you want to do it. And you can also control your scoring system. You can also create rubrics where each criterion is weighted. So you go in and you manually adjust the weight. So it has some functionality that way in terms of being able to do those things for you. And again, so rubrics that attach to assignments. This is just a screenshot of an assignment that came in. And then you go to here, and these are the radio buttons that I talked about. So again, looking at an assignment that would be here. So in this case, just looking at the rubric for the sport biography. So this is the rubric that's attached to that assignment. And so if we just go in and preview the rubric, it's been created so that every part of the rubric is quite specific. So then when you click on the different items, the students can go back through and see what they did and what they didn't do. So it works really well that way. Get it to come up. So here you can see, so all the criterion are listed. So in terms of the presentation, all the different things that they had to do. As in the other video on that PowerPoint slide, you just click on here and they got radio buttons. And at the end, it will actually give you a calculation on what the student achieved. So it's really quick and easy to generate the marks. I just suggest that you also add in a level R for every one of your rubrics for incomplete. Otherwise, they kind of get skewed because level 1 ends up being your bottom, and it always sort of gets that 1 point. So that's a rubric that's used for assignments, but you can also use rubrics for discussion items. So this is a discussion, and the students actually had to submit a paragraph. And so this is what I like about the rubrics as well, is the success criteria can be very clear and explicit, which again makes it easy for you to mark, but it also reinforces what it is where we want the students to learn. So with our students having to pass the literacy test and paragraph writing be a big component of that, this is a rubric, again, for my French careers class, but basically it's laid out the success criteria for a paragraph. So here's your opening sentence, clearly stating your subject. Here's your first idea supporting that subject. Second, your third idea. You then do a concluding phrase, which then wraps it all up. And then the last piece is actually the format of the paragraph, meaning all the sentences are together. Unbelievable how often they do like separate sentences. It drives me nuts. So this was a quick and easy way to give them that feedback as to what they needed to improve that paragraph. When I first started doing that paragraph, I didn't have a rubric. And so every time I was having to type, needs one more supporting idea, needs a closing. I don't have to type anything now. I just click on the buttons for what's missing. Boom, the students get the feedback. They can read the feedback. They can go back in. They can add what's missing, resubmit. and then I go back in, open it up, boom, I just click back on the radio buttons and it's remarked. So again, great for that growth mindset. But again, if we're trying to achieve learning, right, this encourages students to learn because they can go back in and they can redo things. So for me, rubrics are quite powerful, and I highly recommend that you would use them.